The Palos Verdes Women's Club is one of the most prestigious philanthropic organizations in Palos Verdes. And on November 9th, they're going to be holding their prestigious Authors Luncheon. Come with me as we meet some of these authors. We're talking with Jerry Solomon, who has a book with an absolutely incredible title, and it's called A Man's Guide to Food Foreplay. Wow, I mean, tell me a little about how you came up with that title and what the book is about.
The book really started from, I have a son. He was in college in Boston, and you know, for a kid who's raised with food around him all the time, he wasn't that much into cooking. So I used to get these phone calls from school where he'd say, I'm going out with somebody, what can I do? You have a recipe, I'm buying this, the roommates, so on. So that sort of was the impetus to creating the book.
But when he said, did you have a recipe, I mean, does he know you as a cook or?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've been married for nearly 37 years. My wife has cooked maybe 5 times. And not for anything other than the fact that she doesn't like cooking. So she was fortunate she married a man who loved to cook. So I've always cooked. My son has always been around food. He just enjoys it as a consumer.
But you know, that's a very provocative title. What I mean, when you think about what those words are, I know this is a family type show, but what exactly, how did you decide on that title? I know it's newsworthy and it's newsmaking, but how did you come up with that?
In actuality, the book is really about romance. Foreplay in this case is the idea that we all use foreplay in relationships. Food, in this case, becomes one that is, everybody does it. Everybody shares food stories. Everybody shares this. So to be able to take someone that you're interested in spending time with, for example, and inviting them over and just making a meal for them special is really special. It's unique. But to be able to go out to a restaurant and appreciate that same idea of what food is about. I wanted it to be the kind of book where a young man or really a person of any age could pick it up. They'll learn how to, it's really the guidebook. That's what it's about, more than anything else.
Is it for men or women or both?
I think it's really ultimately can be for everyone, but it's directed at men. Okay. Because men, when I was younger, very few men cooked.
Are more men cooking now?
Oh, much more, much more. I think the biggest influence right now is going to be the Food Network. I think there's more people, more men who watch these kinds of programs. I think they are more open to the idea that it's not difficult.
But if I was watching this and I'd say to myself now, all right, that's nice, I should get this book. But what are the recipes? I mean, do they zero in on one specific thing?
No, the recipes are actually, they're actually all based on a story. And the story is about somebody I spent time with and recipes that I did for this individual.
Okay.
So there's stories is about a young woman that I met in New York early on, doing something that I would love to tell everybody. If you ever get a chance to do it, you have to try the Fancy Food Show.
Okay.
The Fancy Food Show is held twice a year, usually in New York City and San Francisco. You wind up going into this arena that has maybe 300, 400 vendors, and all they represent is food.
Okay.
You don't go in to buy, you go in to sample. And you just wander around up and down aisles, tasting chocolates and mustards and everything that you can imagine in the food industry.
So after 10 minutes, you're completely full.
Well, yeah, but you don't care because you're so intrigued by looking for your favorite type of items. And throughout this, there's young women and young men who are handing out all the samples.
All these free goodies. You know, I've got to ask you, I'm kind of a creative guy myself, and I know how hard the creative world is. How difficult was it to get your book published? I mean, have you written other books before this?
No, this is actually my first endeavor.
Hey, terrific. Wonderful.
Because I've been a generally freelance kind of worker all my adult life, I've always looked at I have all day that I need to fill. So I'm either filling it getting paid or I'm filling it by doing other things. So I'm always creating. This book came that way. It just sort of over a year manifested itself. I found a publisher online. I don't know if it's considered an on-demand published book, but that's what I represent it as. It's a publishing company that is called Strategic Publishing.
Okay.
And they represent a lot of authors all around the world. And at this point, I've done fairly well, I think, for an unknown author, just in a sense self-promoting it.
Two final questions.
Sure, of course.
One is, knowing the creative field as I do, we all face rejection. How do you face rejection? I'm sure that you tried before. You obviously didn't give up and you kept on pushing. How did you face that?
You can't get rejected.
Absolutely. You keep on trying.
Right. It's when you're in industries that are demanding that you sign your name to something, you're going to get people who love it, you're going to get people who hate it.
Right.
Eventually you'll find more people that love it, and you really only need one.
Absolutely.
You know?
So this is a great way to end our conversation. Having said that, what has been the proudest moment of your life, especially as it relates to being an author?
Other than the traditional family, son, wife things, doing the book and getting it out there to me has been part of exactly what you described. That experience, that to know it's now in a physical form. It's now out there. It's no longer just sort of rattling around in your head, in my head. And all the other type of art that I do is the same thing. You know, you have to, as an artist, I just like it being out there. I like getting people to respond to things I do.
So any aspiring author who is watching, what would you say to them?
Write a book.
Terrific.
Write it, get it out there, you know, publish it yourself, whatever you have to do. At least that way, you can say you did it.
And keep on trucking.
And right. You always have to keep going. You know, life is all about the journey.
Absolutely.
You know.
Terrific. Thank you very much for coming.
John, thank you.